Hi guys, it is me, Tila B, the model realtor of the Bex Group at Long & Foster, and we are here for this month's episode with our title partner. So we have our title partner from Universal Title in White Marsh, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself, and then we're going to get started.
Hi guys, it's Jason Setty, the managing attorney here at Universal Title in White Marsh, and I am going to be talking to Tila about a couple of things today, so let's get going.
Awesome. So I wanted to just pick Jason's brain just a little bit about the loan forgiveness that President Biden just rolled out, up to $20,000 in student loan forgiveness. So Jason, how do you think that this is going to affect the real estate market?
I wish I had a crystal ball. And because then I could tell you exactly how it's going to go. But so I don't. But I think what you'll see, I think the idea is what you'll see is these people that have these student loans that are having some of this debt forgiven. It'll give them a little more buying power. It may make those people that are kind of thinking, oh, I'll never be able to pay all this stuff down, or I've been working so hard. All of a sudden, maybe it's a light at the end of the tunnel that they didn't know that they had. And I think it's going to help people maybe be a little bit more confident, a little more comfortable saying, yeah, let's get into the market. Let's find a house.
Perfect. So thank you for your thoughts on that.
Sure.
I just thought I'd ask a professional what they thought, someone in the real estate industry, what they thought would be the outcome of this.
Sure.
And I totally agree. So Jason and I have decided that this episode we're going to talk about and talk to our sellers.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things that our sellers should know and need to know before they actually accept a contract. And it's also great to have this information while they are preparing to sell or thinking about selling.
Absolutely. A lot of what a lot of title companies focus more on the buyers, but there's two parties to a contract. There's a buyer and the seller, and as the seller, there are a few things, I think that you need to keep in mind. It's sometimes selling a home is emotional. Either it's going to be emotional, or you get halfway through it and realize, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. And we're certainly understanding of that. So, I can speak from our office. We really try to, we understand that. Mm-hmm. We understand that every transaction is different, and a lot of people have a lot of emotions tied up when they sell their house. And so what I wanted to do is kind of talk you through the process a little bit, ways to kind of make the selling process a little bit smoother for you. So even before you go under contract, I think a best practice for sellers is kind of understand if you have any mortgages on the property. And when I say mortgages, I mean like your traditional first mortgage, but I also mean lines of credit. So if you've opened up a line of credit on the house at any point, like, it's good to have that documentation. I know from our perspective, once we receive a ratified contract and we open the file and we start processing, we send out information requests to sellers. And among the things that we request are, is very simply, do you have any open mortgages on the property, and can you give us information on that? And what we would need, generally speaking, is the loan, like who it's with, and what your loan number is. And we also ask other information requests. All the information that we get is held, it's non-public information, so we hold on to it. So social security numbers, addresses, forwarding addresses, things like that, things of that nature, phone numbers. We don't share that with the other side. We don't share that with the buyer or the buyer's agent. So having that information ahead of time is really important, because it allows us as the title company to process things and move smoothly through the transaction, because there's a lot of balls up in the air to get a settlement to the closing table. And the earlier we have that information, the better. Another thing to keep in mind, different people acquire title differently. Mm-hmm. If you buy or sell just a house with yourself, or you and someone else, and you buy the house with them and then you sell the house with them, then we don't need a whole lot of additional documentation. The deed where you got the property is public record, so we'll pull that. Mm-hmm. But if you acquired title through, if you bought the house with someone and the person you bought the house with, maybe it was a parent and they've since passed away, like having that death certificate there If you're the personal representative of an estate, having the death certificate as well as the letters of administration, which would be given to you by the Register of Wills to probate that estate, we will need that information. And that's easier when sellers can provide that. Again, earlier is better. If you acquire title, basically the point is if you've acquired title with additional people who are no longer able to sign, either they've come off through a divorce or they passed away or something to that effect, we would need that documentation just for the file. I'm not trying to be nosy. Like it's not like I take this stuff and do anything with it other than just it's so that we can check off the boxes and make sure that the people that are signing are authorized to sign. If you're a business entity and you own property and you're selling, I just thought about this. Depending on the type of business entity, we also need entity paperwork. So if you own property as an LLC, for instance, and you're selling the property, what we need a few things. We need your articles of organization. That's what you filed with the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. If you have an operating agreement, we would need that. We would need your EIN, the tax ID number that the IRS gave you. We would need a certificate of good standing, just saying that yes, you're in good standing in the state of Maryland. Now we can pull that, but if you have it, that's even better because you can just provide it all to the title company. That's just something to think about. And then if there are multiple members of the LLC, we just need a list of all of them so we can make sure that everybody's on the same page as to who eventually is going to sign for the LLC. So some of that kind of documentation I think is also important. As we go through the process, once we get to the settlement table, generally speaking, my goal at that point is to make it as smooth as possible for you because all the hard stuff is done. All you're doing as a seller is signing that paperwork, and I want to be able to get you your money as efficiently and quickly as possible.
Sure they want their money.
I have no doubt. I've yet to find a seller say, no, you don't take my time, take your time getting me my money, not a big deal. So the other thing that we need would be just consider whether you want to take a check at settlement or if you would like those funds wired to you. If you would like to take a check, I always remind people, depending on the size of the check, it can take up to 7 to 10 business days to clear your bank. Alternatively, we have the ability to wire funds directly into your account. And so at that point, and that's a form that you would fill out at the settlement table, at least with us. I don't know how other companies do it, but at least with us, you would fill out this form at settlement. So bring a voided check, bring account information. If you don't have checks, just have your account information either handy or bring it ahead, fill it out have it prepared ahead of time, bring it into settlement. It'll make filling out the paperwork go really smoothly. And that way after settlement, we can just scan that, save it in the system, and then, your funds should be out within an hour or two after settlement. You hopefully see them in your account by the end of the day.
Nice. So thank you for this great information. Sure. I know that the sellers are probably checking off what they have what they might need to go and provide. So that's great that you were able to give them a checklist of what they need. But I do want to back up just a bit when we talk about the liens on the property or any mortgages. So what if there are liens and mortgages on the property that the seller does not know about? Are you guys able to get that information for them? Or
generally speaking, yes. As part of the title process, the first thing that we do after we receive the file and open it in our system and input information is we request a title search. And the title search is a public record search. We check a couple of different databases. We check the Maryland Land Records, which just tracks who's owned the property and what documents have been recorded, such as deeds of trust, mortgages, lines of credit. Those are recorded in the land records, and that's what puts the lien on the property. That's how we know what's open and we need to resolve. And then we also check the judiciary, the Maryland judiciary. So judgments, liens against people with names that are of people in the transaction. So if you're a seller and you've got a relatively common name, which I do not, but if you do have a relatively common name, it's not unusual to have judgments against someone else with the same name. Now, when that happens, we send an email out usually about a week after we get the contract and we review the title and all that. And we say there are these potential judgments against someone with a name similar to yours. Now, 95% of the time, they're not against you. They're against someone with your name. So we give you, and we say, do these look familiar to you? Do you know anything about this? And most of the time, like I said, the answer is no, which means you don't have to worry about anything. We just prepare an affidavit, which is just a legal document that you sign, and you're affirming that that's not you, that the person named in that judgment or those judgments is not you. If it is against you, then we will have to take steps to try to reach out to whoever it is that filed that has the lien or that has the judgment against you, and we'll get a payoff statement from them, and we'll put it on the settlement machine, and we'll take care of paying it because that's what we're required to do.
Awesome. So I don't have any more questions for you. I think this was straightforward checklist with some background, so that was great.
One other thing I just thought about it as we're talking. The other thing that you could have together when you're pulling together your mortgage information and that kind of stuff, maybe even before you go under contract, if when you purchased the property, if you kept any of the documentation that you received when you purchased the property, most likely you acquired what's called a title insurance policy. Now that's kind of what we do at the end. We issue the buyer a title insurance policy. If you have a copy of your title insurance policy from when you bought the house, a good practice is, send it to the title company that's handling the transaction. It's possible that you'll be able to actually save the buyer a little bit of money by doing that. Nice. And it also can prevent having the title company having to reach out to you and say, hey, is this judgment against you? Because if you've got your owner's policy when you bought it and it didn't exist, or especially if it was against someone before you bought the house, if the judgment was against someone before you bought the house, if you have your owner's policy, we can resolve it very quickly. And so it's a good thing to have if you're as you're boxing up going through all this information, if you see like documents from when you bought the house, and different people keep documents for longer than others.
I do.
Like,
3 years in, and I still have my folder.
I keep it. I don't know where it ends up most of the time, but I try real hard. But if you have that, the title insurance policy is another thing, and I forgot to mention it before, and I just remembered. That can be very helpful to the title company that's handling your settlement.
Awesome. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And before we go, you've been doing a lot of settlements at this table. So are there any trends that you've seen lately that sellers should expect as they're on market and going under contract?
Yeah, I think the market is shifting a little bit. I think gone are the days of 4 months ago where you could list a house and automatically it was a bidding war and you were getting, $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 over what you were listing at. Those days are changing. The market's shifting a little bit. Buyers are getting a little bit more negotiating room. I'm seeing more FHA loans. In fact, I have one later this afternoon. Whereas, thank you. Whereas it's not my personal one, but I'm settling it.
Yes.
But you're seeing more of those because in the beginning part of the year I didn't see any. And then also the thing that I'm seeing a lot more is seller credits are coming back. So it's a negotiating strategy. Sometimes buyers need closing cost help. Sometimes whatever the circumstances are. That's why you have somebody like Tila, or you have Tila working for you, taking care of you, negotiating all that stuff for you. She's going to get you the best deal.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. And I know Jason talked about title policy, title insurance a little before we started talking about what to expect in this market as a seller. But if you guys don't understand what that is, take a look back at our previous video with myself, Jason, and Dennis, because we did go over what those things are. So if you need to brush up on what that is, please check out our last video and you'll be able to get that information.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So this was our monthly interview and conversation about title. And we'll be back next month with more information for you guys.
Looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Tila B, the model realtor of the Bex Group at Long and Foster, and I have with me
Jason Setty with Universal Title.
All right, guys. We will see you guys at the settlement table.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.